if you want to control your life, you have to be able to provide for yourself. And to give you from going from a micro to a macro level, look at the U.S. for example. What made the U.S. an incredibly powerful nation was during the First World War, they financed their entire war effort through Liberty bonds. Second World War, both from Liberty bonds and taxes. At the end of the Second World War, they were in a position of producing 60–70% of the world manufacturing output. They owned the world economy. There's no question about that. And in a couple of generations of the here, now, me generation of undisciplined people who have had to have everything right now, they've given that power away. Remember all those lectures they were given to China about human rights and all of that stuff? Well, guess what? We're not hearing a hell of a lot of that, is there? Are we? Because of the principle of economic dependency. I mean, whoever controls your purse strings controls you. This is a very, very important principle, and I learned this from reading a lot, particularly about Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett was at one time the richest man in the world. He had, you know, mind you, he took this to a bit of an extreme, but he was a very principled guy. At one point, his wealth was worth something like about $64 billion. And his daughter came to him and wanted to add a new kitchen onto her, or remodel her kitchen, wanted to borrow $40,000 from him. And to Warren, that would be like shaving a piece off of a penny. It's nothing. He wouldn't lend it to her. And the reason he wouldn't lend it to her is, well, he told her, he said that's what banks are for, was because she didn't earn it. And he felt he was perpetuating this idea where she didn't appreciate money that was earned. Well, the principle that's really important to learn from that is the more wealth you have, whether you're a government providing these gilded social safety hammock programs, whether you're a middle class person giving your kids all of this stuff, or a wealthy person, is that the more wealth you have, the greater discipline that you need to have and how you spend it. How many times have we heard about the lottery winners who end up either broke or in jail or dead after a couple of years of their lottery winnings? You have to think about this. Of course, we all want to win the lottery, right? I mean, everybody's got that financial plan in their wallet somewhere for the 649 next week. But no matter, it's a two-edged sword. The more you have, the more careful you have to be in how you spend it. I'm not going to talk about a lot of these since the time is quite limited. I want to talk about the myth that the government can take care of you, because it's a myth that you run into everywhere. And I've got cousins back on the reserve that tell me, oh, they're perfectly healthy young guys who are smart and strong, but they're on welfare, and when a job comes up that they can do, they won't take it because it might impact their welfare payment of $250 a month. I mean, it's astonishing. And they tell me, well, the reason I'm not going to do this is because, you know, the government owes me this, and because of all of these awful things. And I ask them to think about that. What kind of bargain is welfare crumbs? What did you give up in order to get this? Do you control your life? Are you able to provide any opportunities for your family? It's really a deal with the devil, as far as I'm concerned. And the other reason why welfare is a problem, in my opinion, at least the way it's delivered, is because as people, as social animals, over thousands and thousands of years as social animals, we've evolved ways of and skills of looking after each other. In Aboriginal communities, when you, somebody in your family had a lot of kids and they couldn't look after them, we did what you called an Indian adoption. Somebody else in the family that had the capacity would just look after them. In my community, still to this day we do this, when somebody gets married or somebody dies, depending on your rank and the tribe, you have to give money. The higher your rank, the more money you have to give. And it's kind of like a community insurance policy. So when there's a funeral to pay for or a wedding to pay for, everybody chips in. And there's skills and all of these things that are very important and valuable that we sort of wipe out of our psyches once we think that the government's going to take care of us. But what do you do when the government can't take care of you? Look at the US as an example. They have, at least by conservative estimates, long-term liabilities, federal, municipal and state debts of at least $130 trillion. That's such an astonishing number. It's incredible. And if you think that it took Great Britain over 65 years to pay Canada and the United States back its war debt of $80 billion, of course that was on a time thing, but I mean it puts it in perspective. What do you do when you have a third of your population getting set to retire? In the US's situation, you have the greatest growth taking place in the minorities and ethnic groups that are the biggest and fastest growing users of social welfare programs. By 2020, the white population will grow by 1%, Native American 26%, African 38%, and Hispanic 77%. Who is going to pay for this system? At one point, you had 16 workers per every retiree. By the time those people that are in the workforce retire, the baby boomers, it'll be 2 to 1. The writing is on the wall. Even if you disagreed with everything I had to say, you not only can't fight City Hall, you can't fight demographics. So that's a real problem, and we've got to deal with it. I think it's an opportunity to think more intelligently about how to deal with these kinds of programs. I think I was appointed to the National Council for Welfare, and I lasted 2 months. And I realized in sitting on that council, which is supposed to advise the national or the federal Minister of Social Services on policy, that it was really being run by people who were in the poverty business. And so they didn't think too kindly of my efforts to change the National Council of Welfare's name to the National Council for Self-Reliance or Self-Sufficiency. And the reason I wanted to do that was not because I think I'm particularly bright or anything. I wanted to create an emphasis on our policy creating an incentive for people to help themselves. And what we have now is we have a policy that rewards dependency and dysfunction, and it discourages self-responsibility and self-reliance. I am actually not opposed to welfare as much as all of the stuff I say if it's delivered in the right way. I think, for example, if you have a middle class a single parent who may be working at a job and going to school and getting welfare, instead of having policy that claws back her welfare, pay her some more. Make it easier for her to get educated, because she is going to be helping herself. She won't be a problem to finance in society. Anyways, that's the kind of thing that I think we need to look at. So I think our current policy really serves to lock people into poverty. I think it needs to be looked at. It's going to have to be looked at anyways because of the things that are taking place in society in relation to our problem with our finances as nations and the problem with demographics. And this is as attributed as an ancient Indian proverb: treat the earth well, it was not given to you by your parents, it was loaned to you by your children. We do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. if you think in these terms, what have we done during our tenure on our grandchildren's land? What are we leaving them? We're leaving them possibly the greatest debt in the history of civilization. I think it's time for us to evaluate a lot of the things we're doing, and to be fair, we were all brought up in this generation, and so what we have seen is what we just think that is reality. But you know, this reality was created in a time and a situation that was different, and we're going to a different time and situation. We have to be more adaptable. We have to think about the Darwinian impacts of what we're talking about. I mean, it's been an incredible ride being the neighbors of the U.S., but that ride is coming to an end. As a country, Canada needs to start looking to Asia and Europe and other places in the world where we can diversify our economy. So growing communities beyond economic dependency, I think, and what I'm trying to do with these books is I'm trying to paint a picture. People think visually. And if you can paint this a picture in their mind of how they got to where they are, what they need to do to get out of it, and the steps they need to take to plan, I think, first of all, that's what we need to do. And from what I've learned from my first book on the Aboriginal community, people are prepared to do it. They're sick of being poor. They want something different. I think everybody essentially wants the same things. So I think we can do some things about economic policy. And so on that note, I just want to teach you, in wrapping up here, one word from my language. I finish all my speeches this way, and I want you to say it after me. It's waiwa. Now say it like you really mean it. Waiwa. And that means just do it. So thank you very kindly for your attention.